Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Collins, and I want to talk with you. I don't think I've ever shared with you my testimony and how God has used me to begin this Motherless Daughters Ministry. So I want to share that with you this morning. And as I share with you, I want to share with the testimony, but I also wanted to share with you how God healed me and equipped me. So the verse in the Bible that I hold on to is Mark 9:23 through 24. And this is the verse where the man brings his son who's possessed to Christ, and he says, Lord, will you heal him if you can? And Jesus says, if you can, everything is possible for those who believe. Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. That is what part of my testimony is overcoming my unbelief. If I haven't met you yet, I'm Mary Ellen Collins. I'm the executive director and the founder of the Motherless Daughters Ministry. I want to thank you for spending your time with me. Time is precious, so I know how valuable that is. And I want to share my story and my testimony that led to the start of the Motherless Daughters Ministry. This is going to be part one in a series because there's so many stories where God has been just there and directed my life. So my hindsight is that as I'm sharing the story, my testimony is looking at my life, and I see it in four distinct phases. So I want to share those with you. But first, I'm going to spare you from doing the math so you can listen versus trying to figure out how old is she? And I am 73. So I need to make sure and share that with you. I'm blessed to be 73. But first of all, the first part of my seasons, the 4 seasons I was talking about, is the old me. And that is when I was younger. My parents had divorced when I was 10. So that really was my first loss. And then my mother died of breast cancer when I was 15. And after that, my father was physically and emotionally, psychologically absent. So I was really on my own at 15. I had other adults that came into my life, but I was never close to them. There was never a trust relationship with any of them. So my unresolved grief really left a hole in my soul that I was constantly trying to fill with achievement, self-sufficiency, and success. Give me a task, check, I'll get that done. I was addicted to achievement. I grew to be a very competent professional businesswoman, a registered nurse, a small business owner, and a college professor. I was always working. I did not know until 1990 that I had a congenital defect in my brain called a Chiari malformation. That's Chiari, that would end up changing my life. So my experiences, I had to have surgery. I began to experience a variety of symptoms, and it affected every part of my life. Upon some of those symptoms, I lost my ability to balance myself, to walk. I became disabled. I had to use a walker. I had visual problems. There was, when the doctor says, follow my finger, well, when he did, my eyes would bounce. So I couldn't focus on anything. And I had double vision too. It was like the only sense that was turned up was my hearing. And that felt like the volume was really turned up. By 1999, I had experienced my first brain surgery to relieve the debilitating symptoms. And the only thing you can do is make space for this condition. And it was marginally successful, but I couldn't work because my work had defined me. I didn't know who I was. I felt as if the old me died and I was a stranger in my own body. The changes in my life forced me to emotionally deal with all my losses from this surgery. I sought out counseling. Through that counseling, I began to uncover my losses that I experienced. As I peeled back the onion, my core loss was the unresolved grief of losing my mother at age 15. I had put my grief away, locked the door, and thought I could just go on. After all, my mother had been dead for 35 years. So this is when I'm 50 years old. This is happening. As part of my healing, I looked for other women who had also lost their mothers. God called me to begin the first Motherless Daughter group in 2000 in my home, in my living room. But I began to gradually decline again. My symptoms escalated with a vengeance, and I was confined to a wheelchair. I could only sit and listen. In my days and forced quiet time, it was almost like God was saying to me, sit down, shut up, and listen. You've been moving too fast and you haven't listened to me. He talked to me about the hole in my soul that I had been trying to fill all these years with achievement. He helped me to understand that my grief and blaming had disconnected me from him. I had not given this to him. My condition worsened, bringing me to the need for a second surgery in 2001. And at that time, the doctor said they could only hope the surgery would halt the progression of my symptoms. But they were quite sure that I would be confined to a wheelchair the rest of my life. My dilemma of whether to go ahead and have that surgery or not, it was huge. I could have that surgery and it could not change anything. And this was profound. This was occupying all of my thoughts. Then one night, I couldn't sleep worrying about my choices and my future. I picked up the Bible on my bedside and just opened it and began reading. It was Mark 9, the story of the boy who's possessed and his father who asked Jesus to heal his son if he could. And Christ says, and this is my paraphrase, "What do you mean if I can? Don't you know who I am?" The father responds, "Lord, help my unbelief." That was me. I had not surrendered to God and believed he could heal me. I prayed, "Lord, I am so sorry that I doubted you. Help my unbelief." And God said, "Trust me." Well, I had my second brain surgery in 2001, and it was a really difficult surgery, much more difficult than the first. I had many problems, and I did have a respiratory arrest, and I was close to death. But God was faithful, and within 3 weeks after my surgery, I was in physical therapy learning how to walk again. And I experienced a steady progress from that point onward. I learned to walk again, my other symptoms subsided, and I have been blessed in regaining my health. But I am different. I not only experience physical healing, but emotional and spiritual healing as well. I have a relationship with God, which is so different. I knew God before, but then I had a relationship, and it's only grown stronger over the years. I knew he wanted me to help grieving women who had either lost or missed the nurturing care of their mothers at any age. So the Motherless Daughters Ministry, we help these women. We help the women with their grief. And this ultimately mends their relationship with God. I get confirmation frequently that God has his hand on this ministry. It has flourished, helping hundreds of women all over the world. I am one of God's miracles. I like who I am today. I feel whole. I walk with God. The hole in my soul is filled with his love. Everything I do now is to be in ministry and do God's will. Rick Warren, who is the author of 40 Days of Purpose, he's a pastor at Saddleback Church in California. He says, God will never waste a hurt. He will use it for good if you let him. What is the hurt in your life that God wants to use? And will you let him? If you can relate to my story, I want you to share with me how God has healed you. How have you let God use your hurt? What stories do you have about your unbelief that God could heal? So my prayer is for you to know all these things. And as I am, know that I hold you close to me and love, and I know God can do miracles. See you next week. Thanks.